Cheers, everyone. Enjoy some mouth sounds. That's the least criminal thing happening on this podcast today.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in to At the Table. Tonight, as always, we have our incredible host, CJ.
Hi, I'm CJ.
We have Jess.
I don't know what that was.
Hi, I'm Jess. I don't know what that was either.
We're very enthusiastic to be who we are today on this podcast.
And myself, Sam. In the last couple of weeks, we've all been up to very interesting things. So before we bring you what my burgeoning, the thing I've been wanting to talk about for a while and has been slipping through the cracks into other discussions we've been having, what have we been up to, team? Jess, what have you been up to?
Oh, I have been up to so little in the way of TTRPG stuff. It hurts. It hurts the soul how little. I mean, aside from the weekly game that we all share and enjoy and love and have slowly watched our ironclad friendship destroyed through lack of trust and tactical nukes that I personally have placed in a variety of places. Aside from that, I went to Download Festival for a hen do on one weekend, and then last weekend I went down, weekend just gone, I went down to Brighton to hang out with the Dicebreaker kids, Wheels, Liv and Maddie, and we discussed a lot of Magic the Gathering instead of anything tabletop related. So yeah, Wizards! Of all, we discussed on the podcast that is going to be coming out soon. It's part of a brand new series. Highly recommend you listen to it. For myself and Paul Foxcroft are on 2 separate episodes talking about 2 separate things and definitely not referring to each other in any way or capacity. Yeah, we did. We rely on each other so much. Whoops. It's lovely. Yeah, aside from talking about Wizards, talking about how yes, we enjoy Magic the Gathering. We support Wizards in that regard, but Wizards, we acknowledge, is not a perfect company and has its not great times. Really excited for the Lord of the Rings Commander release, which after that podcast, we went out and bought 3 of the 4 sets and a lot of the collector's editions of the booster packs, and now I'm poor. And it was a good life choice because those little pieces of card give me so much serotonin. I am
and serotonin.
I am rich in happiness. Yes. It honestly, if you'll go, we've been playing the Commander decks the last couple of days for Lord of the Rings, and they're brilliant. I really love them. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings and you want to get into Magic the Gathering, I really recommend finding somebody who has the money to have afforded the decks, and then beg them to play with you. Commander's the best format to learn how to play Magic, because it's silly and fun and takes all of the competitiveness out of it and all the statistics and maths, removes it, and you just get to play a really fun game. The character art is incredible. I will be showing you guys visually after, but if you haven't seen it already, take a look. But yeah, that has been my entire last 2 weeks. Light on the TTRPG front. But what about you, CJ? What have you been up to?
Well, just this last weekend, I participated in what is known as Onyx Path Con. It is an online 3-day event where they have a bunch of panels about all of their, IP and different things coming out. And then, in addition to that, on both their channel and a host of other people's channels, a bunch of shows are hosted. A bunch of TTRPGs. Some are just old IP that they do already sell, and other things are things that are coming up soon. So the new edition of Pugmire, we got to show that off a little bit. We got to show off
or pugs specifically.
Oh yes. Yes, so Pugmire, dogs. You can also actually play as cats. Pugmire is set in a post, not quite apocalyptic, but a world, our world, very, very far in the future. And humans have all left, but the animals remain, and know humans only as folk stories, or in some cases, deities. Now, cats don't see them as deities like dogs do. They see them as having been very good and loyal servants for the time that they were here. But
That
it's a
canon.
very like high fantasy dogs. Very fun.
Oh, that's
You've
so
got
good.
and it's a D20 system, but it's got a lot of cool little things that are different, and it's got its own class system and its own like origins and things like that. So I found that in some ways it's almost like a mix between the story path system and a D20 system. And so because of that, it's a lot of fun. But I know that there have been some updates to Pugmire, and we got to show off some of the new stuff there. Another thing that we did get to showcase was they came from Classified, which is a 1960s spy-fi version of They Came From Beyond the Grave. Something that's cute and fun and kitschy about the They Came From series is
Mhm.
that it's set up in a way that it's sort of like episodes of a movie or episodes of a show. So the storyteller is the director, and you can
Mhm.
kind of break the fourth wall sometimes. Like during the spy-fi, one of my players decided, apropos of nothing, I did nothing to deserve this, decided that the singer that was on in this like rich man's resort that we were trying to figure out if he's making robot clones, like, was gonna mess up. They used a rewrite basically, which is kind of like um it is literally what it sounds like. You go, "Oh, actually, can I tweak that scene a little?" And it's done in the same way as like
Okay.
inspiration or momentum is.
My
And they
character wouldn't say
decided,
these
yeah,
lines. Rewrite them. You dirty,
exactly.
unpaid intern goblins that write the film. You do that. We play again.
And
That's
we
how
got to
I'm imagining it.
really exactly we got to really play on the fact that it was like a low budget 60s spy-fi as well, which is great. But
Oh,
basically he decided, oh, the singer messes up and like runs off stage, and my co-worker who's also undercover goes and covers for him. And I was like,
Nice.
okay, so here's the thing. This character, Nora, has absolutely no reason to be a good singer at all. But I think what has happened here is that the actress is an aspiring singer and asked for it to be written into her contract. So now she has to sing on stage. Mostly it's because it was in her contract. And just kind of like, you get to kind of play behind the scenes a little bit like that. So it's really kitschy and fun. And then it's, I don't know, it's kind of meta because you're playing a game and you're trying to accomplish these things, but then you're also like, if you're using a rewrite or sometimes just an offhanded joke or whatever, you're able to be like, oh yeah, the director didn't like that or whatever. And it's just really kind of fun. It's
Nice.
set up to be kitschy. I believe They Came From Classified is new or still in Kickstarter, if I'm not mistaken. So
okay.
those are the two new ones that I got to do.
Sweet.
Also played Scarred Lands, which is another D20 system, and I played some more Scion because that
Yeah.
seems to be my wheelhouse lately. So played a one shot of Scion Hero, and it was a lot of fun. So
Nice.
I don't think. I don't know. Maybe some of the folks that we played with are listeners. So if you're listening, thank you so much. I had so much fun. I've done a few, other things here and there. I'm setting up for a few new games, but as of brand new, fun, exciting things, I think I've gone on long enough. I've given kind of a synopsis of some of the new stuff that we got to showcase at Onyx PathCon, and it was great fun. So I had a good time.
Nice. Is that was it fully streamed, the whole thing? Where can people watch it if they want to catch up on it?
Yeah, unfortunately, the thing that's a bit weird about it is because it's designed so that's not all one on one channel. It kind of like one of our friends joked, "Oh, it's just like a real con. You've got to pick your panel rooms." Um, because of that, it is split around. The ones that I was on, you can check all the panels and stuff on the Onyx Path. The ones that I was on were Plastic Age Plays, PLASTICAGEPLAYS was one of them, and Rolling Nomads. And the Rolling Nomads are just a great group of folks. They're so much fun, and I've hopped on their Discord now, and I love them. They're great. And then Yeah, I think those are the only two channels that mine were on that I can remember. But we got to play with a bunch of really cool people. I don't want to spend the next 5 minutes shouting out, but if you're here and you're listening, you know who you are. You're a pretty cool person. So yeah, I think those are all the channels that I was on, but I know
Nice.
that Dork Tales and a few other groups also streamed some shows for Onyx PathCon, so you can just kind of
Sick.
scroll around, I guess.
Sam, what have you been doing? What have you been getting up
Uh,
to? Have you been doing any online cons, young man?
I've not been doing any online cons unless you consider all the cons that I've been running. No, we've been playing our weekly game. I've been prepping between sessions as a player between sessions of WoW Beyond the Witchlight, because there's a bit of a time jump, and so we're doing a bit of a doing some stuff. So I've found a mini in one of those like weird archaic board game shops which only seem to have like tin or pewter minis that were
Oh my god, yes.
carved in like the early 90s or 80s. So I've got to paint him up and I'll show him to you because he's a wild one. But I've really enjoyed that. And then I've been writing some stuff, and I've been prepping for our little taster of Lancer. A little Lancer taster.
A little taster of Lancer.
A little...
Just an aperitif.
And a moose-bouche.
An amuse-bouche of Lancer. Oh, delightful. If it wasn't clear from Sam's intro and the fondness that he had when he was talking about what he was going to be talking about today, this is going to be the episode where Sam gets to do the long-awaited info dump on Lancer. And CJ and I will periodically come in with questions to expand on the world of Lancer and all of the things we may or may not know. Because, for example, for all of the stuff he sent over in our group chats, I have read some of it and understood none. So this is going to be... I am better at absorbing information when it is given to me face-to-face, so I'm very excited for this.
Yes.
I have read none of it yet because I was prepping for Onyx PathCon, and my only experience is only tangent in that I grew up a really big fan of like Gundam Wing and G Gundam and Evangelion.
Yes.
So like eventually Pacific Rim and things like that. So the mech genre is not new to me, but this game is, and I cannot wait to hear more about it.
Yeah. I think everybody wants to be in a mech. I feel like that is just how everyone lives. We all want to be a little bit bigger, and we all want to be made of metal, and we all just want to punch a city into the ground. So I feel like this could be an RPG for everyone. I just need more people to understand every week when you come on, like, yeah, and in my Lancer game, this thing happened, and here's a mechanic that I don't understand. And
this piece of lore is interesting, and this mech looks cool. And then everyone's
nice.
like, yeah, that's great, Sam. And I'm just like boiling, just like jittering in the corner like a kid on too much caffeine.
Yeah.
Just like, ah.
Tell us more about Eva 02 or Gypsy Rose or Gypsy Danger, not Gypsy Rose. That's a different story entirely. But tell us more about it.
Isn't that a Broadway? Isn't that like MAME or something?
I'm fairly certain it's a young lady who killed her mum because of some sort of Munchausen by proxy thing.
Yeah. I was going for a Pacific Rim mech. I was going for a Pacific Rim mech romance. It was like a ship name, like.
Okay.
But yeah, so ironically, listen, you may both be like, oh, I haven't done any of the reading. Sam sent over a load of stuff and I haven't read it. Actually, I would prefer it so that I can talk to you two like this. I gave a load of digestible stuff to our friends Jordan, James, and they like just jumping into big Word documents and things like that and just getting their teeth into.
Psychopaths.
Psychopaths. And my partner Becky has played Lancer with me before, so she's already like a bit up on the lore, so that's fine. But yes, you two, I really wanted to talk to you in the first instance and be like, hey, this is what this game's about. Right. So this is perfect. Absolutely.
So, start at the beginning. Start at the very basic, very early first chapter. Prologue, if you will. Give us it.
So I was actually rereading. I was rereading this part of the rulebook last night because I realized, like most people who read RPGs, I've been rereading the same bits of mechanics that I don't know, or just again and again and again. So I whipped to the front of the book, mainly because I was trying to find a publishing date. So it is a game that started out as a Google Docs in 2017 by Miguel Lopez and Tom Parkinson Morgan, who are respectively a game designer and a comic book artist, but they both are very well qualified in kind of writing and stuff, and they both have like a young burgeoning like interest in mecha and tech stuff, and watched Gundam Wing and watched like Akira and all these things and Evangelion, and just had like a really powerful interest in kind of like the transformative power of big giant robots smacking the shit out of other things. But they were also really disillusioned with a new swathe of recent sci-fi writing that was very grimdark. It was very kind of closed off. It wasn't very... it didn't have a open and bright inspiration of what the future is. So Lancer is a mud and lasers game, as kind of described as like a bit of a gritty sci-fantasy. It has two game kind of sections. One is the mech combat, which is very what we like to call in TTRPG space, very crunchy. There's a lot of dice rolling. There's a lot of mechanic. Thank you, CJ. Very crunchy. There's a lot of dice rolling, and there's a lot of rules, and there's a lot of specifics, and a lot of aha moments. Like, you know, you've activated my trap card, and this means I get to activate this and this and this. And then the narrative side is very open. It's designed for you to really weave a background in for yourself and have real kind of sway over. And it's also incredibly transparent in the narrative game, unless for a certain instance, for something is impossible. If you roll over a 10, you succeed at the thing.
Okay.
That's it. And in the narrative game, there's less combat. You can still fight things, but it's kind of handled as like an overall, like, oh, I think I'm going to have to fight this guy. You roll over the trigger that's appropriate to whatever's happening, and then you can just narrate a small scene of how that happens. It does mean things happen at like a fair rate of knots, but it really kind of expresses this difference between when I'm in my mech, I can do things. So the idea, I'm going to go for light lore here. So Lancer is set into the far, far future. I've seen some articles on, I think, Dicebreaker, where they estimate it to be about 13,000 years into the future. But all we know for certain is that there have been 5,000 years of this universal government called the Union. And they are a largely utopian, well-meaning organization that are trying to do human good at a sustainable rate. Miguel and Tom have both spoken about the fact that they really don't like organizations that are, but they're secretly bad. And he's like, no, I want the players to do unmitigated good. Like, I want players to go out and do things. And the whole idea is there isn't really a reward system outside of the leveling up system. You don't get, there's no jewels, there's no money. There is one specific bit where you can have a form of money, but that is adjacent to and is not baked into the mechanics.
It's very sort of Starfleet Federation.
It's exactly like Starfleet Federation.
Okay, all right.
There's a lot of DS9 baked into it. Intentionally or not, it's not openly referenced, but there's kind of, you're meant to intuit that the Union in its third iteration is meant to be doing good things for the galaxy, but it's slow and it needs help. And in the stable core of the planets, a labor-free, scarcity-free society exists without bigotry, bonds, or anything. You can live a nice, normal life and go dancing. You can work if you want to. You can do whatever you want. You are comfortably well off, and there's no kind of like leading. I know it's a bit, but they're leading with this idea of like
the core fantasy.
Exactly. But they're leading with this idea of like, you know, not only is this like possible like within fiction, but like this is something we'd want to strive for. But they also acknowledge on the edge of this society things get increasingly more difficult and strife, and there are kind of like different tiers of to how this society works. So there is a need for people to jump into big giant mechs and either fight for ideals, fight for conflict, fight off pirates. There is one constant in the universe, which is no aliens have been found yet.
Okay.
So
So,
it's
so
just
all of the
humans.
conflict is human. Okay, I can see this. I also really enjoyed the fact that we have a super stable, mask off, very good society. But when it comes to conflict, get in the robot, get in the giant,
Get in
giant
the robot,
mech.
Shinji. But
Just
like, it's meant to be like you're fighting for things. Like you jump in the mech to defend the people from, giant like big like monster fauna that exist. You're fighting off
okay.
pirates who are trying to steal a technology. You're doing things, and the idea is like it doesn't matter. You're there to do big brave things as big damn heroes. You can be anti-heroes, you can be, all different types of flavors of human, but the idea is humanity will still find, and there are still points of conflict which you will stand up and do your best.
Okay.
So
All right.
I
I'm on board so far. This makes sense to
yeah.
me. I enjoy the base. This feels stable. Um, I'm on board so far. Please continue to chapter 2.
So chapter 2 kind of goes into like kind of what the players can do, and it kind of explores a lot of the backgrounds that you can go in. And even though there is a scarcity free society, as I said, there are conflicts and there are a lot of different types of people, and what it is really trying to push is the fact that like human existence exists in the widest possible spectrum in all these societies. And in fact, within Lancer, there are several settings that would kind of like not ape, but are holding either like are paying homage to, like as a true love letter to other sci-fi settings. Quite thinly veiled, I feel, is the Karakan trade barony, and Karakan sounds very like Arrakis, and there are big family kind of baronies who are fighting over for supreme power, and you get to jump in big mechs that look like knights or things in armor, and it's all very kind of regal and things. There is the Long Rim, which is a very kind of like financially starved and scarcity hungry area, which has a lot of spacers. They're trying to fight for the barest scraps of air and water out on the edge of the universe. And there are all these different societies. In fact, there is a society who has found a god, and that is unquestionable. There are several different publications where people have found magic, and it is technology, and the two are not disparate. There's no kind of like Star Trek other than DS9, like going down and going, well, this magic was actually a computer and it was doing things. Like there's I can't remember, I think it's Sleeping Over a Hollow Crown. There are technomancers who genuinely can kind of like pray and magic circuitry into being, and it genuinely works in a way that is somewhat analogous with the rest of the mech stuff.
Oh, it's got big Necron energy. I like that. I'm here for this. Yeah. Okay. You've dropped some key buzzwords there, pal. I am still on board. CJ.
I like that there's a way to sort of. Bring in all these different elements or tropes without being disingenuous to the setting. It sounds like it's in a way it's both flexible and got its own identity enough that sort of thing works. So that's exciting.
It's really kind of interesting as well, as it sounds very similar to a lot of anime that you would watch that revolves around mechs, in that it is aliens rarely come into it. It's a lot of humanity versus darker forces, sort of maybe beyond their comprehension or control. If there are gods involved, then they're going to be involved to a hellish extent, sort of thing, or have an impact on a society at some point. But okay. I like it.
Yeah, and there's a high degree of kind of, I would say, flexibility within like the character creation. So I am actually in a bit going to put you onto their D&D Beyond alike, which is called CompCon, which is a companion computer, which is basically meant to be like a low-grade AI that can just generate stuff for you, and it works. Like it's a really good character sheet. It'll load everything for you. There's a live bit where it rolls all the dice for you and keeps track. And also stylistically, it looks great. It does not hurt Lancer, the fact that they've really doubled down on the aesthetics, and everything slaps. Like I've used all of their wallpapers, like, and their big art for all of my wallpapers and computers for everything. It's incredible. So I am going to drop this in the chat so you can like fiddle through if you like, but by no means are you obliged to do so.
I'm already on it.
I'm so excited to use this to make my character stuff. Like, I love a good, just comprehensive app. God.
I enjoy the code loading on the app. That
if you like that, press options, and then you can load a theme called Horus Terminal. Now, Horus are a special AI-led coding group, and so the UI looks completely different. And the idea behind Horus I will get into these like mech groups in a moment, but the idea is like an AI has basically become super sentient. The singularity has happened, and that the AI is generating and making these mechs and telling people what to do because they have all of the information ever, and all of the mechs are named after mythical beasts or monsters. So there's the Gorgon, there's the Lich, there's the Hydra, and they are all absolutely wild. So you can hop into Pendium and licenses for that, but manufacturers. So the CompCon is your basic, like it gives you all the information you're going to need to run the game for free.
That's
if
nice.
you have bought, so when you buy some of the books, there was only ever one physical release book from Massive Press, which is Lancer's kind of like primary publisher. And all of it's on itch.io, which means that they can update the PDFs live, and under the free bit, like try a demo on itch.io, that's always the data that you would need to plug into CompCon. You don't need to buy a secondary product to plug it into your character sheet maker.
Huh.
And the same codes plug directly into Foundry to generate all of the NPCs, all the mech frames.
Ooh.
It's a very coding friendly group.
It's so user friendly.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yes. I think that CompCon was a stretch goal because they blew through their stretch goals within hours. I cannot remember, and I will find out how. I can see Jess's face.
I'm on the Pegasus frame. I'm on like that.
Oh yeah.
This is so reminiscent of like full on Evangelion Akira 80s anime style mechs.
Yep.
Like these are beautiful. They're incredible to behold. I like this.
Whilst you're flicking through, I will talk about the main mech frame. So, Lancer doesn't have classes. There's no class system in the game. And what it does do is it gives you license to these mechs. Now, all of these mechs are so unique and so different, it genuinely feels like playing a new game every time. And the wonderful thing is, they've obviously play tested this to hell. The wonderful thing is that all of these are modular and can work together. So every time you succeed a mission, every time you run a mission, succeed or fail, you gain a license level, and it gives you some stat increases to your pilot's stats, so you can increase some more triggers, which are like the basic skills, and also some hard feats and skills. But you get a license level, and you can pick it out of any of these. And if you put 2 license levels into any frame, you get the mech. But if you only put 1 license level, say like, I am really interested in the IPSN North Star Caliban, which is a really cool little mini mech, but I don't know if I want the full frame, but I like it to work with my current frame. You just put 1 level in, and you get this shotgun, which like pings you around the map. So the mech groups are General Massive Systems, which is Union's own kind of brand. Imagine if the government like had a warehouse that made everything. General Massive Systems make everything. And one of the core tenets of Lancer is 3D printing works, is universal and free as long as you've got like stuff to jam in the printer.
As a little thing, I like that it's called like General Massive. That feels to me on a really base level.
So all the General Massive System mechs are named after different faces of what we call Everest. Obviously, a lot of different societies exist around that massive mountain range, and so have different names for different parts. So you've got Everest, you've got Cholomalonga, and you've got Sagahar Martha. And those are all frames that you can get with some of the General Massive Systems. IPS North Star are mainly a shipping group, and they name all of theirs after like famous pirates. So you've got Blackbeard, you've got Pat Caliban, you've got Drake,
Tortuga.
you've got the Tortuga. Oh, the Tortuga. Mwah. I kind of love
Vibe. I love this vibe.
Yes. Smith Shimano Corporation are kind of like, I would say, hyper Apple. They're very like streamlined, very kind of like precision machines, and they're all named after moths and butterflies. So the Atlas, the Death's Head is one of my personal favorites. And
Also a vibe.
yes.
I'm just getting the impression that I'm going to be basically picking my entire character off of things I think sound cool.
And that's the great thing. There's there's probably optimal builds, but honestly, there's so many different combinations of everything that everything will work for you. You can pick bits that just vibe. You can pick the biggest, chunkiest boys, and they will do the biggest, chunkiest things, and it will just vibe. The combat mechanics are so streamlined to the fact that there's no kind of big wrong decisions you can make.
Nice.
Which is really nice to hear, because although I do love optimizing it, when I first joined D&D, and if I had a suboptimal build, I would have a bad time.
Yeah, I can understand that. I've done that many a time.
I think
Continue to do
one
so.
of the worst times, or one of the worst things for me, is I think if you have a suboptimal build, but it's in the right setting, it can be fun. But I think when you're in not the best build, and you're either in just the wrong setting, just period, or you're among a bunch of people who what is most important to them is to have an optimal build, that's when it gets really messy. Because then it's like,
Yeah, when the crunch combat comes and everyone else around you is rolling 20 dice and you're all sat there like, I do 2d6 damage. Yay!
Yeah.
And that hurts sometimes.
Yeah, that could be kind of rough. So it's nice when that's just not a thing.
Yeah. There is something very appealing about the idea that I could potentially just create an anime magical girl out of all of these parts, and it absolutely behave like that. There is just the I think it's called, where was it? It was like the morning cloak, and the beauty of it is like it's holding a rapier. It's sort of sized as a human mech, and then it's got all these floaty butterfly-like wings behind it. Oh, you absolutely know I am going to card captor Sakura the hell out of this. That's beautiful.
Yes.
So yes, there's a lot of even though it's got very crunchy combat, it's got very, I would say, fuzzy things. So a lot of the mechs are size 1, and that is basically roughly the height of a single-story building-ish. All humans are half size. So and then they just go up from there. So everything can be very big, but it's meant to be quite fuzzy. So if you wanted to, and you are encouraged to add details about your mech that are not descriptive. A lot of I've noticed a lot of things are like, well, that's not canon. Lancer does not care. I came across a thing. So the last group are called the Harrison Armory, and they name all their ones after generals. Anyway, so they've got the biggest mech out of the starter ones called the Barbossa. And it is it's huge. It's I think it's size 3. Yeah, it's size 3. It's about the size of like a cathedral. Like,
oh shit. Okay, fair enough. There's like a little guy on the top of it that I can see, and it looks like about the same as like a 3-story building. But then you've got this massive gun on its shoulder. I don't know.
Yeah,
this is like a very big mansion of a
yeah, someone redesigned that as an unto-see like hermit crab with the gun sticking out of the hermit shell. And the art on Twitter, if you follow me on Project Headphones on Twitter, I'm really just retweeting Lancer mech art, and I will not take any apologies for it. It's really open to interpretation, and the Lancer community is so lovely. It is a very openly like the main two writers, and there are other obviously lots of editors and a whole load of support people, and a lot of the community do a lot of support for the game. But it's an openly trans inclusive space.
Nice.
When you go to the Discord, I think it's still like the trans flag and one little mech called the Goblin doing a dab. So like, it's very trans inclusive. It's very a lot of people who do a lot of coding are willing to help you at the drop of the hat, even if they've answered the same question 50 times that day. They're really plugged into the virtual tabletop space, so they can help you implement it there. And there's even some cross-working with other companies. So Retrograde Minis, who do 2D little sprites, were commissioned to do all of the mechs. So you can just go there and design out your mech, and it's done. So that can be a good base plate to just kind of do all that kind of thing.
Okay. They seem to have thought of everything.
It sounds like there's a lot of really passionate people either directly behind it or that like it enough to support it as well, which is really cool.
I suppose if you create a sort of base that is inherent to sci-fi popularity in and of itself, that is, humanity is all good, everything is good and everything is fine. There is no evil plan. Humanity's just busy being great. There's also big whacking monsters, or we're going to go and explore space, or that. Whenever you make the backstory of the person that you are playing inherently good, nothing can go wrong on that end, and you're not problematic in any way. Yeah, it provides a really solid base of people, usually, instead of, take, for example, Games Workshop, and anything from the Warhammer universe, where everything is problematic, and you get some of the most problematic people in that community.
I mean, another great example of that, and I don't think I'll make any enemies by saying another great example of that is Vampire the Masquerade. There are amazing people there, but you're playing a monster. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying you're not allowed to play people who have humanity or who are good in some ways, but essentially you kill people to live.
Yeah.
So, like, you've got people who are like, yep, I get that, and I'm playing that, and either I'm gonna, play Louis from Interview with the Vampire and try to only eat rats or whatever, or I'm just going to understand that and enjoy it in that space and play this awful character but not be an awful person. But then you get a weird group of people where it's a power fantasy.
Yeah.
So, those things attract people anywhere, because if you've got a malleable universe like Dungeons and Dragons, you have people who just want to play that kind of character there. Yeah. So it could be anywhere, but I think when you're like, no, this is good. This is a good setting. People are good here. It's harder. It's not impossible, but it's harder.
Yeah.
I think they've also built themselves. Their politics is on their sleeve, and it allows you to make narratives and make games that say things very openly. And they've built some stuff. So back to the Lord. They're on currently the third committee. The first two were dissolved. The first one after a major emotional event that shook the whole of humanity. The second one were disillusioned after they had reacted poorly to that trauma and turned into what's called an anthro-chauvinistic reach for the stars, where they believed humans to be the peak and primary driver for the universe, and so they did a lot of terrible things to usurp and colonize much of space. And the third committee is now working against those things, mitigating that impact, and whenever they're meeting new or relinking with groups of humanity, they are going soft touch, like first contact approach to kind of undo those things. And so spoilers for those who have not yet touched No Room for a Wallflower, which is their first major campaign publishing from Massive Press. Obviously, a lot of people have written for Lancer, and my goodness, it has one of the best third-party licenses I've ever seen, to which it says, we wear our politics on our sleeves, do with this kindly. And you cannot do certain things or say certain things with this game, but it is incredibly open, and the community have taken it with both hands. So No Room for a Wallflower is, it's Aliens meets Heart of Darkness meets Evangelion.
Ooh.
And it actively interrogates the trauma of colonization and colonialism onto a planet, and has the players work to not only acknowledge that, go through it, undo it, and make the world better going forward from there.
Okay. A key mechanic of taking a look at your own past, undoing it, and fixing it. Yeah. You can absolutely see why the dickheads stay away. Because I don't think they would have the backbone to be able to deal with that. They'd be like, oh no,
I'm sorry,
this is too
is this anti-colonialist? Bye.
Yeah.
Au revoir. I like to keep my fantasy. Oh.
Yeah.
No, this is appealing in a way that if it is actively attempting to get the player to engage with the idea that you are great now, but you weren't always. However, the way through is brighter.
Or like radical optimism. Like it's a real kind of like a kind of like you're working to improve both your like space for your community and for yourself in a way that you can do dynamically and with a big fuck off gun. Like it's just a real wonderful fantasy, and it's why I've really engaged with a lot of the lore that's just been like people are actively trying to make this place better, or they're like trying to, or there are interesting things here and someone is doing something and being a big damn hero about it. Sorry, Jess, I cut you off because
No.
Yeah,
I think
I'm jittery.
No, you're allowed to be jittery and excited. You're talking about your favorite thing. When you say sort of before, like there's no rewards in terms of jewels or gold or anything like that.
Yeah.
What is the reward, I guess, then for expanding humanity's hold in this way? What is it that your heroes in big damn Gundam suits get out of going and resolving conflict? Do they is it space to build more mechs? Is it land or establishment rights or something? What is it that they get out of it?
I think mainly like doing the missions allows you to unlock more mech bits, right? So like you basically level up through that licensing thing. During the narrative play, usually between the missions, you've got downtime as an active like section. It's not just kind of like you could also do some downtime. Downtime is a core part of this model and is kind of like a module within the narrative game. And what it does is you can basically do a thing and it will create what is called a reserve, and that will actively reward you in your next stage of combat or some way in the narrative. So what you can do, for instance, if you have just finished a big damn mission and you are, recovering and recharging and having a rest period, is you can say, hey, we were in like an ice cave and we got really iced over. Can I talk to some mechanics about like making a hot mech, like it doesn't ice over, and then you can say hot mech, but you can say yes, absolutely. It were in your next mission you can now like smash a big red button and your mech won't freeze for that encounter. And there are things like that, and there are exotic items. These are things that are unprintable, they cannot be recreated through the general printers that the mechs have, but they are unique weapons, armor, like licenses, that kind of thing. That are unique things that you can gift to your players. But a lot of it is driving narrative. It is kind of like, I want to solve this issue, or I want to do this thing. So the starter game that we're going to do a taster of is Operation Solstice Reign. It is a nakedly love letter to the Halo games and like ODST and Reach, where it is people in big techie suits doing a thing in a city and sliding around on big mechs. And it's meant to have this kind of like heroic militarism. You turn up to a planet that is going through a bit of a Cold War going hot, and suddenly something happens, and you, the Lancers, have to jump into the fray and help stop something worse from happening.
Okay.
And that's meant to be like a little intro. As I said, some of the I can never remember. I'm so sorry. I really love reading it, but I can never remember the title of it. But one is you land on an ice planet, and some ancient artifacts are coming to life, and they're disrupting the local ecosystem. and
Transformers vibes.
yeah,
Into
exactly.
it.
That's happening. No room for a wallflower. As I said, there's like more ancient evil stirring, and there's like a human colony that's really on the edge and needs saving. It needs improving for these people's lives to go on. And I found something that really engages people is it has a really elaborate AI system. So as I've said, the CompCon is basically like, it's basically your phone. You know, if you speak into it, it will do a thing for you. It's about that level of smart. But there are AIs which are not only sentient, but they have their own agency and can do things. And so much so that they need to be shackled so that they don't become rampant. And that is a kind of a narrative that's gone along. And Catherine Stark, who is from the UK, she's written a whole like addendum book, which is a third-party product, but like Massive Press were like, this is great, all about AI and how to do with that. Because if you fight AI, they take you into a paracausal, an adjacent realm where you fight maths. You're like going up against structures and hallucinations. It's basically like going into, like, if we had to like a 40k analogy, it's like hopping into the warp, except the warp knows things about you. Like it's the end of all the animes. Yeah, it's the end of all the animes where it's you're fighting the character's trauma in a very like
no.
It's
Okay.
fucking
Did you say, okay, if I misheard, that's understandable considering it's one of my goals, but did you say you can fight maths?
In a sense, yes, because the
I
the
do want
AI
to
is-
fight math
I
all
do
the
not
time.
fight math. I often fight math and lose. I'm good.
It's kind of like a representation. You've got like tiers of bosses called eidolons, which are like these kind of slithers of the AI, and they're meant to do things, and they act unlike normal combat, but you do normal combat at it to kind of solve this. And a lot of and what Lancer asks you to do is solve the puzzle of combat in a mech way, because a lot of the NPCs are very recognizable. They have these things called templates. So if you know one beforehand, it's not metagaming to know, say, that's an ace, which is like a fighter pilot mech. It runs very fast, but is very like light HP. I will just shoot at it quickly to deal with it, or it doesn't, it's all a thing to be solved. And the templates are just a really wonderful way for GMs to like rely on that. But again, they're so flexible, and you can change them to so many degrees. And just seeing the kind of NPCs that are generated through a lot of the written material, they're utterly different, and really lead to very dramatic battles that can go, like, they don't actually go on for that long, because your mechs are very powerful, and the way that health goes down is pretty quick.
So how many turns does combat usually last in that then? Would you say, in your experience with the way that you've played it?
I would say I've read, so a lot of the games, so the combat is designed that you're very rarely just bashing each other and to make numbers go down. They've got things called sit reps. They want your combat to be meaningful. It has an impact, and you've got an objective you want to do. So they rarely last more than about 6 turns.
Okay.
So you've either got to uncover something, you are defending something, you are getting from this side of the map to this side of the map, you are scanning these mechs in order to ascertain information or other things. And those are and so that really leads to like interesting and varied gameplay, especially if like some of those NPCs are designed to like hunt you out whilst you're trying to be stealthy and that kind of thing.
Okay. So with that in mind then, looking at this from like a combat perspective and an achievement perspective, what is the mechanic system? Like, what's the dice rolling system?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay. We've gone from fighting maths to you practically orgasming over the idea of the combat here. I am terrified, but go on.
So it only requires 2 different types of dice, a d20 for most of like the rolls to hit and also like some of the narrative stuff, and a d6, which will do most of the damage stuff. So mainly it just kind of does a roll a d20 to see if you hit, and then roll a d6 to see how much damage that does. All the weapons are different, all the systems are different, but there are a lot of different... so the turns work, you can basically do something that takes a complete action or 2 quick actions, and then you've got movement and reactions and such. And Lancer cannot allow you to do the same thing twice in one turn. It just does. It says you can't do it. So if you shoot let's say you've got like a rifle, which you can shoot in a quick action using an action called skirmish. You can't do that twice in the same turn. You have to shoot it, and then you do something else with that quick action, which allows you to do things like tech attacks, which is scrambling other mechs, like to either get them to overheat, shut down, hallucinate, levitate off into the air. You can make other things happen, like make drones pop out your back, generate a whole fortress. Becky's favorite one, which is use magnets to attract your other mechs onto your sword, which you can then attack because they've entered your threat area.
Oh, yes.
That's
reverse
cool.
range attack. I'm not firing at you. You're coming to me. Get
That's
on
like
my sword.
lightning whip or whatever it is in D&D, where you're just like, I hit you and I pull you to me. Lightning lure. That's it.
But all the mechs work so differently to the combat. Like I think Blackbeard's one where he like pins you to the ground and leaps towards you with like dangerous swords. Some of the actions you do are going to generate heat for your mech, which if you take on too much can cause your reactor fail and you can explode. However, heat is also a resource, so some of the mechs can't do some of their actions until they get to a certain level of heat. They're all so different and wild, and all the combat is so weird. And also the damage never gets too big silly numbers, which is lovely to see, but like you as your mech health is in 4 stages, okay? So your hit points go down to 0, and then we see what happens to your mech. Do you blow up an arm? Does your weapon blow up? Do your systems fail? And then you go back up to full hit points, and then it happens again another 3 times.
Oh, that's nice. That's lovely.
Yeah.
So you're having to adapt as a player to your character slowly, sort of basically falling apart in combat if you are going full hog and not maybe taking your health.
It's
seriously.
sort of like the Psyker or the whatever the other the non 40k version is, where it's like if you get too much you can basically overheat, but I mean with the Psyker then you friggin' explode and hurt all your party members. But I didn't know if that's the way it is in the TTRPG, but I imagine it's probably similar too.
Sounds similar.
It's really interesting to have health points and health bars, both in like heat and HP, as resources that you're actively spending to do things with. And it allows for your like mech to blow up a little bit, but it to be okay, so you can look cool for like stepping out of the smoke of. It's very Gundam, it's very Evangelion. Like you've blown up an arm, so all you've got is this little folding knife to like run up and stab people with. It just it creates desperation and changes player tactics so quickly.
Okay, so in terms of then healing. How does healing work? Because as somebody who has been playing a cleric for a while, healing is my life. So tell me, how does healing work? Or how does repairs work?
Very, very, very accurate. There's very rarely any kind of regeneration within combat unless you've got a couple of certain types of mechs, especially the Lancaster, which basically sends out patch fix drones to fix you up. That happens between the fights, basically. You get a short break, and then depending on your engineering skill or your type of mech, you've got a number of repair kits on hand, and they can repair certain sections of your health. Okay. So you might be going to the next battle completely knackered, but then after the mission, you get a long rest, so you can just repair fully. And Lancer is designed that in the eventuality between missions, you will have access to a big printer that will print your stuff. Sometimes they tweak it for the story, so like you can say, we've got a printer, but it can only do size 1 mechs. So either you're going to have to spend twice the amount of time to do a size 2 mech, or it's just not available to you. But the idea is you're able to heal between the combats. And as I say, the design is for you to have winnowing health going further into the missions, making it more complicated and bigger dire straits.
Okay. I love a good stacking condition / set. I think that's a thing that's fun with through the breach as well. Not in quite the same way at all, but that oh gosh, it's been so long since I've actually had someone be in a bad way. But basically, you have conditions that can happen, and then it takes time to actually repair those. It's not like oh, my arm fell off, but then I had a 6-hour nap, so I'm fine.
Yeah, it just got it's back on. Now that is for the mechs, which are basically your second character, and you can have a number of other mechs in your mech garage, and only one is active at any one time. Your pilot still has health, and if they have to leave the mech, or there is some narrative play where you could take some harm, you do have, I think it is about 6 points of health. So if like one of the mech guns points at you, you could just be dead. And there are systems for you to like. There are things called flash clones, so you could just be regenerated on the spot, but there's a difference in your personality, and that is a intentionally thorny and controversial way of bringing back your character. But they're trying their best to always make sure that you get out of it, because as a Lancer, you're like the top 1% of the human population who do cool, dangerous stuff all the time. But it still allows outs and interesting things to happen should your character go down and out and then die.
Okay. So, for comparison, your pilot has 6 hit points. What is the minimum that one of the mechs has? Do you know?
Okay, I'm going to have to hop in. Oh, no, I can just go to one of my profiles. So one of the basic mechs what's interesting is that none of the mechs are more powerful than the others necessarily. Your starter mech, the Everest, you could just play for the whole game just using that, and that's fine. Let's see. I'm going to use Alice Sparkles, go to her mech hanger, and her mech is called A Dangersome Inheritance. Also, the writing is incredible. The auto-generated names for the mechs and the pilots slap hard. Okay, so this mech has 14 health points, and it has 4 structure.
Okay.
So it effectively has 14 times 4, which is 56 health points in total.
Okay. I'm trying to get an idea of perspective as to how much tougher these are than their pilots, and I think that's like a level 1. That's one of the lesser, bigger mechs.
Yeah, I can't remember what license level we got up to with A Dangersome Inheritance. I don't think it's that high, because we made a SSC Black Witch who does all the cool mechanic stuff.
Always say.
Yeah, so we're only up to license level 3, so she'll only have just got that mech. Yeah, so that's not even very high. So you tend to start out with like 12 to 14 hit points per structure.
I have a question, because I've pulled up this pilot stuff. What's a call sign?
So your call sign is the thing that you get named. Like if you're in combat and you would just like, so obviously.
Like in the okay.
So it's your actual call sign, because obviously it's going to be complicated with your character called one thing, your mech being called another thing. You need you need a group name for you both to be shouted at, and the call signs can just be like rad as hell, or they could be like ugly duckling, or like whatever you want. It's meant to be funny and just like whatever you want. We do have, I had an AI mech that was helping out my 2 players called Happy, because he was harm attenuating protocol and protection interposer, and we just called him Happy for short.
I would like to suggest that for session 0, our group's call sign is a superfluous amount of diggity, mainly because I think it would be funny to hear whoever's yelling at us have to say that repeatedly. Also, trying to come up with an acronym for that's going to be fun.
But then you've got your own personal...
Or diggity.
Yeah. Diggity. But then you'll have your individual mech like call signs. So like, Jess, your character in your mech could be called like, I don't know, mouth sounds or whatever you wanted.
Yeah, no, it's going to be called Sammy Crimes at this point. Like, it's going to be called... Sam's a dick.
I'm very happy.
Oh, yeah. No, we'll find a way to dishonor your name. That's fine.
Good. I'm glad.
Okay. CJ, any names initially coming to mind?
I just started slamming on the randomize button until it came up with Grimoire, and I was like, "Yeah, that's
Oh,
it."
that's you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
there we done.
CompCon is so wonderful. It allows you to both on the player end where you can create your mechs and your characters, and it leads you through quite easily the character creation stuff and kind of explains what it is. But it does feel like in universe. There's obviously all like the text and the coding flying around in the background, and it keeps calling you Lancer Pilot. And at the end, you basically get a little nameplate thing that tells you what you are. But you can share this code to anyone, and your GM can plug it into their CompCon and see all your stats. Your GM can also create encounters there and create the NPCs, and then you can press on a big button that does all the coding and puts it into what's called an LCP file, which you can then throw into Foundry. And yeah,
Wild. That's so cool. I'm just like scrolling through all this stuff. Just whoever, whoever made. I just. How
but
do I
it's
say
made by
nice
people.
things about them without saying mean things about other people?
I really like the graphic design of this, and they've been really open in sharing the graphic styling. So I think you can just go down to like the about section or credits, and it will tell you like how all the buttons are coded and everything. And then people have been able to make templates on like Google Slides and like Word in order to replicate what this looks like. For their documents. So, there's a parity between the third-party publishers and the main publishers. Everything looks the same and everything feels the same and the coding's the same and the textual language. And there's a real kind of like united... people are trying to do this thing like in parallel together and telling their own stories. There's a load of really powerful Twitch streams that are doing this game. Interpoint Station are doing really well. They're basically doing West Marches, but Lancer. And there's also McAfee. I can't remember what else they're going, but they've gone for like a very Afrofuturism thing. And there's a lot of like Afrofuturism mechs, and they've really baked in that into their lore as like a future casting. And it's just incredible to see people going, I see myself in this, and I'm putting this out there so you can see what I see of myself.
Damn.
That's awesome. It circles back to the fact that the system has enough flexibility but knows itself well enough that you can bake in whatever you want, really, especially when it comes to identity and theming and things like that. So it's pretty cool.
It seems to have read the audience in the room in itself pretty well. To have created something so comprehensive, so user friendly, so everything friendly so far. It's easier to understand than I initially thought it was, and it's very appealing. I really like the idea of it.
It's kind of like a tiered pool. Like there's enough depth for people who would happily go and sink their teeth into the lore section, which is like the back half of the rule book, which I just loaded onto my Kindle and just keep reading again and again, which really just throws out philosophy as lore and leads you through these concepts. And then there's just things that are like, hey, do you want to just be a mech and slap up stuff? Because that's the same level of getting into the game and equally as rewarding. I just find it incredible on all levels that people can enjoy it. I remember I was listening to Dungeons and Drama Nerds, and after their small Lancer arc, they did a whole session on mecha and transness and identify and seeing the parallels between those communities and also understanding how one's expression of an external self can really be transformative and like self-affirming. That's a really interesting episode. I will have to go back and find a link for it. It was incredible.
I think when we had the episode with Super Dylan, they mentioned that like being able to sort of see yourself as the character that you are playing is inherent in self-confidence in the TTRPG space and in growing as a person in general. It's why it's a therapeutic form for a very good reason. But yeah, if you are with mechs and Gundam, which have been, oh god, they've been symbols of trans inclusivity for fucking years. You don't have to look hard into like any anime, into any manga to know that like when an artist is writing about having their body transformed into a massive, powerful mechanical structure of no determinate gender, and this includes Power Rangers, there is an element of complete, utter gender transformation and like just blankness. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter. You exist as a powerful version of yourself. Wonderful.
I also just think that in a lot of ways, although it's been known to go wrong on occasion, but a sci-fi setting has always attracted people to be able to have transformation and things like that. It exists in a fantasy setting, but sometimes the fantasy worlds that are built can feel and be so rigid that it's more difficult. And I'm not saying there's no sci-fi worlds that aren't rigid, but I think that there's sort of a room for exploration there that it really is in both, but I think it calls to people more often in sci-fi, if that makes sense.
I think it's to that point exactly. That was one of the points that the writers said, look, there's enough variety in the human existence that we don't need to write in aliens, and we don't need to hard code them as speciesist for people to imprint certain societal norms or certain things onto them. You can have the full plethora of the human existence and it's all human. It's not, oh, I really identify, like I find some of the Starfinder stuff really interesting, but I know it can be very othering to find that the values of this society are some of the monstrous creatures. It can be like, that's weird. And also shout out to and I know it's a different game, but the Battletech community who openly found some transphobia in their midst and went, fuck off, mechs are for everyone, and we're like openly trans inclusive. So that shout out to our cousins in Battletech. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm aware that I'm now coming down off my cloud. Please indulge me in a few more questions, but I will soon fall back and soften and lose consciousness. What was your, like, we've got some first impressions of Lancer, but like, is there anything you're like, I like this, or I have a question about that?
I think my main question is, what do you play? What is your mech of choice?
I haven't actually played Lancer. Yeah, I've been GMing it, and that's been a really rewarding experience for me. I think I like the SSC license for the Death's Head. I love the idea of like dedicated mounts for robots, and that one's just got a big sniper rifle on the side. Our friend James is very interested in that one as well. I have been able to play somewhat because Olive, who I've mentioned on the stream before, is making a video game based off the Lancer stuff, so you are just able to play around with that, and it has all the same big themes. But yeah, honestly, I would play all of the mechs because they're all fascinating to me. But I especially kind of like the small ones, like the Caliban and the I think it's, where have you gone? The Atlas, the Goblin. The Goblin's very funny to me. But just like the idea of these small but very powerful mechs that are like jumping up and shooting massive mechs, and there's the same scale, there's the same parity of damage. You know, just because it's a small mech doesn't mean it's not going to do big things. But the bigger mechs get to do bigger things that aren't like shut up but no type things. Like it's so yes.
Okay.
Very cool. It sounds like there's just so, like, I think I was originally intimidated because there was so much, but because the base of it is so user-friendly, it makes all of this extra stuff actually very exciting. If that makes sense.
It's meant to be a palette, not a roadmap for all of these experiences. You're meant to sample a bit of this and a bit of that, rather than a lot of and wonderful RPGs that go, we are teaching you a journey here. You know, we want to see the full width of the journey, and here is a good path up the mountain. And this one asks, where would you like to sit in the meadow? The flowers are fucking everywhere. I think Lancer especially lends itself to shorter form campaigns. I think you'd always be yearning to unlock more of the license levels and do more of the stuff, but because you can actually get a full mech with all the license within license level 3, which is only 3 missions, which can be just about like, up to about 6 combats, that's actually not that far for you to just be able to fully understand how a full license work, and you're not forever going, oh, I wish I could have done that or that. I think the shorter scope of their missions are really interesting. Not to say that some of the campaigns aren't longer. As I said, No Room for Wallflower is like really long, and has a lot to play with and really asks you a lot of big questions of progression, and there is a real path there. But yeah.
Nice. That answers pretty much all my questions.
Yeah, I feel like I have so much reading to do, but I'm enthusiastic about it.
I know I'm going to do what I do with pretty much all TTRPGs that I don't know, which is to fling myself in wildly and rely on everyone else to have done the reading and hope for the best. So I'll be turning up as Madoka Magica in a mech.
Good. Perfect.
I cannot wait.
There appears to be a background which is celebrity, and I think that's probably pretty good. Or whatever else a Magica girl is, I don't know. I'm eyeing up Farfield team, but unfortunately I think that will require me to do a little bit more reading, so that I know what I might have encountered in the Farfield. So what did you see there? I don't know. I'm an amnesiac character. Don't worry about it. I don't need to know anything.
But also, like, I think you can genuinely put any narrative you wanted. Like, you know, if you wanted a Farfield team that also, you know, they were basically in Interstellar and now they've come back and have jumped into a mech, that's valid. There's no points of the lore that is they're like, no, that doesn't really happen here. All points are valid. You know, even though it's been very we're in a post-scarcity world, there are still, like, you could have just been like a kingpin. You could have like gone to a gambling casino planet, and now you've come back to earn glory and fame and money. That's equally as valid as you're a union representative trying to do good by slowly establishing connection with the rest of the humanity. And it's all options are open to you, and none shout down another, and none are what's the word, like, none hurt the law. There's no points of where.
I think, like you said earlier on, that there's a lot of different things that you can rope in, this themology here or this thematic here. And I think, you know, knowing what you've just said in response to that and what I was asking about, it feels like the possibilities for building things are practically endless with this setting, and you can just kind of go with however you meet this setting where it is. And I think there's something really cool about that.
Got a good Lego vibe from it. Just tack it on, see what happens.
Okay, yes. All right.
I was like, the movie?
Still works.
Still works. Yeah.
I think that's a really
beautiful.
You can build it according to the manual, or you can just fuck around and find out and have fun and create an airplane that also has a staircase on it and a flower pot and a unicorn cat or whatever is in the film.
And the headlights are 2 Lego heads.
Yes, exactly.
That sounds like what's going to happen to us when we do our one-shot, Sam. I apologize in advance.
In this analogy, I'm the space guy who's just shouting mechs instead of space. Perfect. Excellent. I have no more. I'm really excited to start the taster session. I will put more out. I may even do a couple more Twitch streams to show some of the prep. So I will not tell you two when that is, but I will tell everybody else. So I can have fun with that. Excellent. Cool.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge, Sam.
Thank you for the info,
You're very welcome. Genuinely, I think I'm on a come down now. Like, I've just been like bottling up, like, I can't wait to talk about Lancer, and now I'm like, oh,
yeah, the shakes.
I'm just going to go outside and touch some grass.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Right, CJ, where can we find more of your work? What's happening?
Hello, everyone. My name is CJ, or CJ Story, on most of my socials. You can find me here on this podcast, which I greatly enjoy doing. You can find me on the Onyx Path every other Tuesdays at 7 p.m. for Scion the Coming Storm, and soon you'll be able to find me in a couple of shows on The Beloved Nerds and on a show on the Initiative Order. So check those out. Very excited, and I will pass over to Jess.
What up? I can be found online at Dr. Bees on Twitter, at Julahoop on Instagram, and on Twitch at It's Dr. Bees. Because I'm an idiot. That's fine. You can find some of the projects that I'm working on at the moment here, because I'm about to tell you. Three Black Halflings have a halfling hangout coming out. I don't know if this episode will be out by then, but you'll be able to catch up on the VOD on Twitch. So go check out Three Black Halflings. Take a look at the Patreon. Take a look at all their content. Take a look at how fun diversity can be when it is wielded with great respect and power. They're an excellent trio. Highly recommend. Go check them out. You can also take a look at Questing Time run by the immaculate and immeasurable Paul Foxcroft, who I live with and love greatly. Therefore, I am promoting him here. The Questing Time campaign, it's season 2 of the main cast, plus comedian Ed Knight, who knows more about D&D than the rest of the cast, and as such is showing them up something chronic. Go and enjoy that over at Questing Time on Twitch, at Questing Time Comedy on Instagram, and just regular Questing Time on Twitter. It would be so much simpler if we all just had the single username for all of these things. But no, we like to make life hard for ourselves. You can also find myself and Paul, I think this should be out by then, on episodes of You Have to Play This by Dicebreaker, that should be out in the coming months, where we chat about stuff that we love. So yeah, go check all that out. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. That was really kind of you. Sam, where can we find more of your stuff?
You can find more of my stuff over at projectheadphones.com. All the podcasts there were made by me and wonderful other people who have been willing to embark on this mad project of mine of sitting in front of microphones in disparate places and shouting at each other over various different subjects. Other than that, you'll find me at Project Headphones both on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, I might be doing some Twitch streams just talking or showing stuff about Lancer and more to do with Foundry. But yeah, that's everything. If you wanted to find more links to everything, I have made little hot links at the bottom of the show notes. So you can click on our names and you can find out the various things that we do. Thank you very much both for allowing me to info dump about Lancer. I am going to go ground myself, do some breathing exercises and readjust. But yes, thank you for joining me.
No, thanks for sharing. I had a great time.
Good evening, everyone. Just before we get into the end credits, I am going to issue some corrections. Number 1, you can actually heal in the middle of combat in Lancer. You take the Stabilize action, which is a full action, and you can select things to heal. Luckily, ComCon leads you through all this, so it will tell you what exactly you can heal, but you can also find that within the Rules Compendium part of ComCon, which is your free access to the rules of Lancer, and there is a free rules download available on Massive Press. Number 2, the campaign module that I keep forgetting the name of is Sleeping Above a Stolen Crown. The book, the physical copy, is next to my bed and I've been reading through it and it is wonderful, but for some reason the title just slips out of my head. The author is Laurie O'Connell over at 12 Prints, and it's a wonderful book and I'd love to get them in to talk about it. And the third thing is I've mispronounced a field guide. It's Mefekane, and it is made by NHP Shaka. As I said, it is like an Afrofuturism, but I wanted to read the forward note because I was very interested in the root word so I could pronounce it correctly. So this is the forward. This setting includes references to real-world events of war, forced removal of people, and social and political upheaval. The term Mefekane alludes to a period in South Africa when the European colonization caused massive disruptive impact upon the native people of South Africa. Associated with this impact, the Zulu Empire would continue to amalgamate a melting pot of tribes under the name Zulu. It's worth noting, the Mefekane is a term that is somewhat European polluted, the characterization of the effects of Zulu conquest, but ultimately a method of sugarcoating the impact of white colonization by this over-exaggeration of the Zulu nation building during the 1800s. I write this setting with the history in mind, but also the desire to see stories of representation of my blackness seen under a new light. Being an American of African descent, I've lived my life seeing mostly pale bodies travelling the stars, fighting off creatures and saving kingdoms. Sadly, and in a large part, these stories rarely centre black bodies due to the prevalence of the white/European narrative. In creating this setting, I seek to craft a story, and I can relate to and feel sparks to me intrinsically. While I hope this field guide serves as a dual purpose, similar to other great sci-fi literature written by black bodies, in that it exists to combat the pervasiveness of solely white narratives, I say to this that yes, the setting for Lancer RPG will borrow from controversial topics, however, it will always honour the significance of them, and ultimately shine as a testament to how we can all do our part to combat the shortcomings of the world we live in. God bless, and be easy. So that is by NHP Shaka. I can't find their real name, but it's the internet. People go by what they want. You can also find them on Twitter at Station Ukuwa, which is UKUWA, and they've got wonderful YouTube, and I think they're on Twitch, but they've been playing No Room for a Wallflower, which I've been watching, and their general campaign. It's wonderful to see. And like I said earlier, it's really great to see people latch on to Lancer and go, I want to show history, politics, philosophy through this and shine this going forward. That's it for the corrections. And now, thank you for listening to our show. At the Table has been a Project Headphones production, and you can see more of our work over at projectheadphones.com. To get in contact with the show, please email atthetable@projectheadphones.com. Please also remember to rate and review and share amongst your friends. If you value us highly, you can rate us highly on your podcatcher of choice. You can share amongst your friends by clicking links and sharing amongst those. You can retweet our tweets, or retweet me sharing other people's retweets, I guess. But allowing us to do that puts us higher up in metrics and also allows us to do bigger and more incredible things than we're already doing, which are incredible enough as it is. Our music was Captain Scurvy and Space Jazz by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com, created under the licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4 license, which is creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4. Thank you and roll well.